Hello, my name is Jason Bugazar. I'm the technical specialist at M.A.R.S. Biomed. Today I'll be doing a brief instructional video on how to remove a Solmetex Hg5 and replace it with the M.A.R.S. LibertyBOSS. So right now we have the Hg5 here with an evacuum trap before the separator and one after. This one is fine. We're going to leave this one where it is. This one we're going to take out because it's not necessary in front of the amalgam separator. In fact, it has nothing to do with an amalgam separator whatsoever. So we're going to get rid of this so they don't have to worry about disposing of it as toxic waste. That's going to be our first task. All right, I'll set you down right there. Perfect. What I'm going to do now is duct tape the ends so when I'm transporting it, I also bag it and box it so that way there's no chance of leaks. Once again, I'm moving this thing because one of two things are happening with that evacuum trap's in front of the amalgam separator. One, on average, you're paying about $1,200 a year for disposal of it because it is toxic waste. Or two, you're unknowingly dumping that mercury down the drain, which is illegal and extremely dangerous for the environment. So now it's sealed. I'm going to keep it out of the way and dispose of it properly. So I'll just put a lubricant on the barb fittings. Makes it go into the separator or into the hose a lot easier. But first, before I continue, I'm just gonna heat up the hose. This shows you a good example of why using the right line cleaner is always a good idea. There's a buildup, quite a big buildup of sludge all the way in this line. It gives you a good indication on what the rest of the lines from your operatories to your pump room looks like. We just got this office to start yesterday on a line cleaner called Clean Lines, which is supplied by M.A.R.S. Biomed. The M.A.R.S. Lines 3-pack is a combination of power lines and clean lines. These dual cleaners will help any office with suction issues clean their evacuation lines. You may have to heat it up a couple times, maybe because the first time you didn't heat it up enough. You'd rather underheat it and have to heat some more than overheat, because overheating could cause collapsing, and we don't want that. go. Now our next task is to remove the Hg5 completely from the system, cap it, put it into a plastic bag, and then box it up, ready for transport. Now the lines are evacuated. Lucky for me, whoever installed this likes to use the nice cheats of these rubber sleeves. Not a cheap fitting, but in my opinion, not the best fittings either. I rather have a nice solid threaded item into the amalgam separator. If these weren't clamped on properly or too loose, someone bumps into it, huge mess could happen. So that's why I discourage the use of these things. But what's good for me is there's one on the inlet there. All I have to do is grab my 1.5 inch cleanout plug that comes with every Boss, throw it in the top here, and clamp it. And that is good enough seal for transport. And that's sealed for transport. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the outlet. Alrighty, so now our next stop is to actually install the LibertyBOSS. And what we're going to do is, so I'm going to put it in here. What you want to do is you want to figure out a place for the LibertyBOSS that will be, one, accessible by the inlet and the outlet hose without over bending it too much, and two, you want to be able to remove it when it's time to change out the separator. So I've tried a few different locations. I thought, okay, I could do it this way where the hose comes into the top there, no problem. But down here, it's going to cause problems back here because you have the quick connect that goes in and it's got to be straight. You got to be able to pull it outwards. So then what I had come to the conclusion I had made is what I'm going to do is put a 90-degree elbow into the top of the separator. Basically, that's going to shoot the quick connect to the side, allowing me to butt the front of this right here, which gives me nice access to the bottom hole down here, so that I can go straight into the outlet. It'd be easier for the install later, or for changing out later on. And I'm still able to access the top with no problems. So what we have here to put the elbow into the top of the separator is we have a 1.5 inch threaded to threaded nipple, and then we have a 1.5 inch 90-degree elbow with threaded to threaded on both sides. Anything that's being threaded that goes into the separator, we want it Teflon taped. For those of you who don't know how to apply Teflon tape, well, the way I like to remember is whatever you're threading, hold in your left hand, Teflon tape in your right hand, and then you just got to thread away from you. That is automatically clockwise. And I like to go a few times around. So for this Teflon tape's done. So we'll bring our new one. I like to go about 3 or 4 times around, just to make sure that I get a nice seal. Some people like to use the plumber's glue. I don't, because it tends to stick to the inside thread of the separator. And for those of you who don't know how we do here at M.A.R.S. that we reuse the shells. And with the glue around there, it affects the metal rings that are inside our separators. So something that can give us a watertight seal, plus we can take off with no mess, is the best way. Some people like to use silicone glue, some people like to use different methods. This gives you the nice watertight seal, plus you're able to reuse it. And if you're going to be taking it out in 2 years, save yourself the headache. Use Teflon tape. It's cheap and it works great. And if you're having a hard time threading, if you're ever concerned about cross threading, what you can do is turn counterclockwise for a quarter turn until you hear that little click. That means it's dropped into the threads, and then now you can twist with no worries of double threading. You know you're in. Don't over tighten, because it's the general rule of plumbing. We don't over tighten our connections. They are made out of plastic. They will crack if you over tighten. So the connection I always like to do first is the hardest one. The inlet here, it appears that I have enough hose and easy access. That's the easiest one to get to. The hardest one is the bottom outlet. It's got stuff in the way, so you want to hit that. You want to tackle that first. Get the hard one out of the way. That way, the easy one, you don't have to move the separators much once the hard one's already in place. So it appears to me that I have to cut about 5 inches off of the hose to make it work. But to be double sure, what I want to do is put my quick connect on the bottom. That way I can gauge my distance a little more accurately. Yes, so definitely going to cut off about 5 inches, maybe even 6. Alright, now we're going to see if that fits. That'll make it perfect. So now our next task is to take this. It's a 1.5 inch barbed to 1.5 inch threaded. And we're going to shove the barbed into the hose. We're going to Teflon tape the threaded and put the nipple, which is the other half of the quick connect, on. I like to prepare the fitting before I shove it in the hose. It just makes life a lot easier. Let me get my silicone lubricant on there. Lube it up, spread it out a little bit. There we go. Wipe it off with a paper towel. And now we can heat up the hose. Because I didn't like how deep that went. I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to go about to this hex right here. I pulled it out. And now I'm reheating the hose even further down to make sure I get that nice snug fit. There we go. And now, while the hose is still warm, you want to tighten the hose, the C-clamp to the hose. Just gets that much nicer of a tighter fit. So basically what I did there is I noticed that the pump can move over a little bit. It's got enough connection, it's got enough room with all its connections. So just pulled it a little bit away from the compressor so it doesn't interfere with anything there. And now the next task is to do the top inlet. When you're connecting the quick connects, this is attached to the hose, this is attached to the separator. It goes in, the arms come up. You fold the arms down, making sure that the O-ring is not tucked under the arm, otherwise it won't lock. Tuck it over, lock it in place until you hear it click, and that way it's on. Again, repeat the process like we did at the bottom. Teflon tape the connection, throw the quick connect nipple on, lube it, heat the hose, shove it in, clamp it, and we're done. And there we have it, an installed M.A.R.S. LibertyBOSS. Okay. If you have any questions, you can go to our website, www.marsbiomed.com, or check out our Facebook page. Once again, I'm Jason Bucazar, Technical Specialist. Thank you very much and have a great day.